Hey, what's up, guys? It's Showtime. Showtime Show Fitness over here. Size, growth, get big. All right. So, just got done watching a really good video by Generation Iron. It's Natty or Not. It's about natural bodybuilding. There's a little. I think there's some misconception. I think it did a pretty fair job, not coming to a specific conclusion one way or the other. I think it was pretty fair on how they, brought up people being, not subjective. What do you call that when people are skeptical, right? Skeptical. And that's going to happen in any walk of life, right? It's just like with people. That's why they're so quick to judge people who are on steroids, right? It's because they go, well, it's, I'd look like that too, if I just did the drugs, right? And then they have it out, then they don't have to tell people why that they don't want to compete, when the reality of it is they just were too lazy, or they have shitty genetics, or it's just a sport that doesn't interest them, right? Any of those are nothing wrong with that, right? But it annoys me when people take away the credibility of the athletes who go out and win. Go, oh, I can do that too. Hey, well, get the fuck up and go do it. Shut the fuck up, right? And you want to talk to people like, oh yeah, it's okay. You don't want to. You don't want to call too many people out. You're not gonna be having anybody in the stands, right? But it's neat to see these natural federations out there getting some exposure finally, right? Because I've been promoting Chad Martin's federation for years, right? And it's with this Generation Iron thing, it might start to finally catch on. There's very few things that they can take and still get away with it because they're not doing it. I don't think they're doing. They do random testing in some of these federations now, randomly, so they might be able to catch some of the growth hormone guys right now, and peptides and things like that, SOMs and stuff, which is still going to limit them to how much advantage that they could have over the natural athletes when they're going to get popped by getting randomly tested for the other stuff, right? Because one goes very well with the other, right? So sometimes people, they won't play with things unless they get. Some people have the all or nothing mentality where they're like, well, if I can't play with everything, I don't want to play with anything, right? Depends on the athlete. And the other athlete, well, if I could take one thing to give me an edge over these guys, I'm going to do it. Well, it's still better to take one thing than five. There's one guy that tested positive in Chad Martin's federation that 8 things in his system. And one of them was Anadrol 50. One of them was test. Something else, Clenbuterol. And then he had fucking Tren. I mean, come on. 8 things. It's kind of like it destroys the whole purpose of having a natural federation. That's why people like King Kamali and some of these other guys come forward very skeptical, saying everybody's on something, and I can attest to that. It's not true. Chad Martin, I've known him for years. He's clean. He's consistently the same. And now that he's in his 40s, you could tell he's having a harder time. He's getting it done, and he's still sometimes presenting the same or better physique. But there's times where there's dips in his career and throughout the year that you don't see on stage that he fixes. That he's not able to do with hormone or testosterone replacement. He doesn't take the growth hormone. He doesn't take the SOMs. You could tell, because if he did, you wouldn't see these little things that he battles with, and he disguises and overcomes in order to get back on stage. So he's clean. He's legitimately clean, for sure. Andre Galloway's another one. He's 100% natural. My dad's another one. He never did any drugs when he competed in powerlifting. Not once. Creatine was the closest he came, and he went to a pharmacist, and they told him, no, it's a blend of 4 different amino acids. So, and then Ben Matheson, he's another one. He's a chiropractor now, and a sports doctor. He never took any testosterone. I can attest to that. He never took any He never took any tren. He never did any of those things. Okay, even though he never competed in the Natural Federation, it was his mind's his own choice, and he never talked about it because he didn't. He was in a non-tested federation, and so he didn't feel it was right to call anybody out, right? We all know who does stuff and who doesn't, for the most part, right? And as far as that whole thing about Mike O'Hearn and accusing him of being Mike O'Tren and all these other things, a lot of people believe that. You heard the whole spectrum, right? If you've watched the thing, or if you even just watch social media, whatever, you got all ends of the spectrum. He's clean, he's not clean, he's on minimal HRT. Who gives a damn? Okay, every single thing in there is true as far as when he started, he was clean. He was a phenom at age 13, 14 years old, beating guys that were 20. He was on drugs as a teenager. There's no way. Here's who they should have interviewed. They should have interviewed Brandon Lane Craig, right? They've been in the industry for forever, right? They run the Emerald Cup every single year, okay? They know what's up, and they know for a fact, and they didn't even meet him until he was 16, 17, he was a monster. And they knew then he was clean. He was just a natural phenomenon. So if he's doing it now, after his career's over, notice he hasn't competed at all. So what's people's problems? He's already done all these accolades, all these trophies, titles, clean, no drugs. So if he's doing TRT or HRT, and maybe that's why he's gained the extra inch from age 49 to 50 on his arms. He's got from 21 and a quarter inch arms naturally to 22 with minimal HRT, TRT, which doesn't count, by the way. It's just to get your natural levels back where they're supposed to be, right? Back where he was in his 20s and 30s. And again, if that's what he's doing, because who the fuck knows? It's none of my fucking business. And again, he's preaching the right things. He's teaching the right nutrition. His training is spot on because it's not overtraining. So the natural athletes can do his system and get fit, freaky, big, and strong without the drugs, right? Because the longer and harder you train, you do some of these 2 to 5 hour workouts that some of these drug guys have done in the past. As a natural athlete, you might go catabolic, right? Because it's a long time, with low T to train. You're probably not going to be able to recover in time for most people, right? And again, that's not set in stone. There's so many people that say there's no such thing as overtraining, yada, and there's even natural athletes who are really good to say that. So you can't really, but I do question, if you're gonna be all natural, all clean, you really got to watch that whole overtraining thing. I do believe it's true for those natties, where they can overdo it and not. I mean, if you're year after year going to the gym, you're not growing, you're still a little guy, and you're in the gym for 2 to 5 hours, you might want to, in your natty, you might want to change some things. There's probably a reason you're not growing, other than the fact you're natty, right? So you just you choose your path, and you just got to remember that. Big thing I like to preach is, natty or not, once you decide you want to go natty and cross that line, good luck coming back. Most people don't. Some people do, but small percentage. A lot of times they'll either stay on the other side, or if they do decide to come back, they don't do it to the same level of passion and hardcore that they were before, because they just can't quite. They might even go from here to here. It might be that much of a difference, but they know it and they can see it. They know their bench press is down 10, 20, or maybe even 50 pounds. Their body weight down 5 or 10 pounds of water or whatever, and they go, I can't do this anymore. They quit, because they know that they either got to quit or they're going to go back on. But there's some people that will cross back over, and they'll get off and stay off for the rest of their lives. And Ronnie Coleman, the natural Ronnie Coleman, right? And this is where it gets confusing, because natural Ronnie Coleman was natural till age 30, and then he won 8 Mr. Olympia competitions, and he tied Lee Haney. And then, but then there's another guy that had dabbled in him a little bit and completely went off of him, and thought he was never going to compete again, and then came back and won all these Mr. Olympia titles in another federation, and one guy that he beat, big name, Kai Green. Kai Green was second or third in the natural federation, and he ended up coming up to second when somebody didn't pass a drug test. So Ronnie Coleman was the big name natural bodybuilder, and a lot of people got him confused. Didn't know which Ronnie Coleman people were talking about. Oh, Ronnie Coleman, he's not natural. Talking about the other Ronnie Coleman. You know, so especially when the Mr. Olympian 8-time Ronnie Coleman was clean until at least 30 years old, and then he did it through a doctor, and legally after that, because the police officer didn't want to break any laws, he was still top 10, top 16 if you're a genetic freak or genetic freak. And then he passed everybody once he crossed that line, right? And then he started cleaning house. He did some other things besides vitamins too. He learned some little tricks along the way that he didn't know about, you know, to get some last minute vascularity. He was too clean. He was eating too clean too long and didn't know how to do the proper carb load, sugar load, this, that, the other thing. And was actually overdoing it, over dieting, over this, over that. So he learned those things and changed them, and he became world champion 8 times, right? But the other guy that was very impressive, like I said, was Kai Green. Was all natural for a long time. And the other, Ronnie Coleman, that dabbled in it for just a little bit, thought he was done, came back, won those big titles, then became the natural Ronnie Coleman, and the natural Ronnie Coleman beat the natural Kai Green, and then the natural Kai Green crossed over as second in the world into the IFBB, and he had been getting some shit. It was like 205 and shredded. It looked great. Oh, that can't be natural. Da, 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 da. And then, of course, when he went over the IFBB, go, oh, yeah, he was. Well, yeah, he's fucking 280 on stage, motherfuckers. He's sometimes 240, sometimes 280 and peeled. But yeah, he was natural before. You know, if you didn't believe it now, you know now he was, right? That's all that matters. And he's second in the world, clean, and second in the world with the IFBB, and even first in the world because he got 4 Arnolds. That's still a world championship. It's just not the Sandow. So he's one of the great uncrowned Mr. Olympias, right up there with Flex Wheeler, who had 4 Arnolds, and Kevin Levrone, who's also an uncrowned Mr. Olympia because he was a badass for a long period of time and deserved some recognition there as one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time too. But unfortunately, he was always up against the freaks. He was against freaking Ronnie Coleman all those times, and up against Dorian Yates before that, right? I mean, just a tough time to try to get them Mr. Olympia, right? So it's just a sport. It's the way it goes. And but Kai Green and Kevin Levrone, Flex Wheeler, still, you know, some of the greatest bodybuilders of all times, even though they didn't get that Mr. Olympia accolade. Who the fuck cares, right? They won some shows, in my opinion. It's just, I think the Arnold's just as prestigious as the Olympia, you know. Being able to win the Arnold or the Olympia, if I could only win one, it's a tough call, man. I'd be honored to win either one of those fuckers, right? But fuck, you gotta eat your pro card. I'm not even in the same category. I'm not one of the greatest in the world. So when you look at those other physiques in that, you gotta take it with a grain of salt and go, okay, those guys are pretty freaky, but remember, those are some of the best natural physiques, you know, in the entire world. And unless they pop positive on a drug test, you know, give those guys the benefit of the doubt, because they look phenomenal. And they don't get enough recognition as it is, especially the true natural guys, which could be those guys right there, and there's some other guys right in there with them that are, you know. I know Chad Martin is, you know, so don't try to take away and go, okay, well, drugs and this and that. Fuck it, it's hard to win those shows. Those are some good athletes. They've got great genetics either way, you know, no matter what you're taking or not taking. Now, granted, all through what they were saying through that whole show, I'm 100% in agreement with. If you're not fucking natural, don't fucking do those shows. Do the NPC IFBB. Those are the most prestigious with the biggest money prizes anyways. Why go take, trophies away from the natties? If you're a fake natty, don't just come out and say, if you want to still hide behind that title because you're a big time social media person and you've built your platform on saying you're natty, even if you're not, then when people ask you why you do an NPC or IFBB, just tell them you want to be up against the greatest in the world. Whether people believe you or not, it doesn't matter. They're gonna, the greatest natural guys are getting questioned all the time anyways, and you just tell them, no, I'm not juicing, only with oranges, but thanks for the compliment. That's, that's what I tell people, right? And I use that as an excuse. Natty or not, it's a good excuse. I mean, it's a good answer, right? It's not anybody's business. The weights don't move themselves, so as long as you're not cheating, you're not in a, you're not juicing and jumping into the natural classes. Best athlete wins, right? Arnold Schwarzenegger said several times, take all the drugs out of all the sports, you got the same champions because it's hard work. You learn the tricks of the trade. There's a different way of prepping if you're on stuff. There's a different way of prepping with, they're not huge differences, but there's differences. And you need to figure those out. And you need to examine every angle to be the best that you can be, regardless of what you're taking or not taking. It's a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week job to do the very best that you can. I've seen guys cross over that were pretty good, thinking they're going to be the next best thing, and fuck up the drugs and take the wrong ones and look like a fucking water balloon, like a water buffalo. So don't just think that you're going to take drugs and get better. There's actually more competition at the top. And they've been on it longer, and they've been doing it for years, right? And you're going to jump in there as a first-time guy that's never taken anything before, and you've been clean all those years, and you start juicing, and you think you're going to go up against these guys that are, 4 times bigger than you've been against, and now all of a sudden you think one cycle is going to make you the difference. You're ignorant. You got people that friggin' have longevity in this sport that have been doing them with minute amounts and getting bigger every year, every cycle, and have all this muscle maturity and have been on the top of their game with their science in sports and their sports medicine and their technology in sports. And all of a sudden you're going to think you know nothing about all this stuff and come in and crush everybody. You're smoking crack. See, it ain't like that. Best athlete wins, guys. Best athlete wins. Period. The only time it doesn't is when you cheat and you take the drugs away from the natural guys. That's different. That's not best athlete wins. That's just being an asshole. So, plenty of federations that are clean, not clean. Here's how great our system is in powerlifting. I went to a power meet one time at Rap Fitness, and it was awesome. A lot of competitors. We had like 100 or more competitors, maybe even 200, 150, I don't remember. But it's check the blocks, and it's on your own honest scout, and if they thought you were juicing, you're going to take the test for sure. If you're one of these guys like my dad that's already been tested 20 times, people just quit testing. Oh, fuck, we know you're clean, right? But there were, out of all the athletes of that show, 4 of them checked the blocks. For tested, and that just goes to show that everybody is trying to be the best, and and it doesn't even mean that all but 4 were juicing. It just means that best athlete wins, right? And it's fair. If you want to be in a tested class and you want to make sure nobody that's on stuff's taking your trophy from them, all you had to do was check that box. 4 people checked the box, so it is what it is, right? This was a few years ago. This is 2000. Somewhere between 2011 and 2016, 17. 2000. No, it was sometime between 2011 and 2016. Yeah. So, anyways, it's been Showtime. Showtime Shred Fitness over here. Size, growth, get big. All right.